Welcome to the HITea With Grace podcast, where we spill the tea on HIT. Today, I'm honored to welcome Jamie Hill-Walters, Chief Customer Officer at Janus Health. Thanks for joining me, Jamie.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
So tell me a little bit about the career path that brought you to your role today.
Goodness, do we have like 3 hours? No, I'm just kidding. I started in healthcare, 20 years ago. I first started on the GPO side of things and supply chain, and what a crash course in everything healthcare. I had the privilege of managing value analysis and clinical committee meetings for Janus Health, and then I helped do that with Kaiser Permanente. And being in my late 20s and really experiencing that was amazing because we were bringing in leaders from all over the system, having common problems to solve as it related to supply chain. And then from there, basically in 2012, I transitioned to more of the RevCycle and finance side of the business, as I like to call it, the non-sexy side of healthcare, but I love it and we get to help so many people. What's important to my journey, mentors, advocates, putting myself out there in a way that probably in my early 30s was uncomfortable, but I always say we grow the most when we're uncomfortable. And then also finding what I was really good at, right? And it's that relationship, client experience. But what's really important is learning about the industry that we're in, because revenue cycle is very complex, but also finding your people. Organizations like HFMA, AHAM, there's so many out there that really showing up for the communities that we serve through HFMA, for example, and giving back to that organization is important. And then having the foundation of servant leadership. We get to impact the lives of patients, whether it is supply chain, whether it is RevCycle, non-clinical, clinical. And that just nicely aligns with the values that I am as a woman. And I fell into healthcare. I don't think anyone says, I want to go work in RevCycle. But I think that's shifting a little bit because I get to speak to like MHA students at Baylor University, right? Explain to them about RevCycle and the impact that they can make all across this country. And the biggest piece of it is investing in the future leaders, like my mentors and advocates invested in me, right? We have to give it away to keep it. So for my healthcare journey, just quickly, it's finding the right people to elevate you, to learn from, and making the right career moves, being very strategic, building a strong network. I'm really proud of my network. I nurture that network, and showing up as your best self to figure out how can I best help the communities that I get to serve, whether it's on the partner side or even on the provider side. So that's just a little bit about my journey.
Yeah, so inspiring and such a great way to think about it. I love your perspective and I'm so thrilled we get to learn from you today. So the revenue cycle, as having been in the space as long as you have, has dramatically changed over the past decade to largely manual processes to now AI being used more than ever before. But I'm wondering, what are some shifts in payer behavior, patient expectations, or regulations that have really shaped how you approach RCM today?
Sure. So I want to start with the end in mind. I always do that. And it's funny because I look at who is my best resource from a patient experience that impacts everything you just talked about. My grandmother. My grandmother was not in healthcare, but you know what she has done? She's been a caregiver and an advocate to numerous generations within my family. And when I talk to her and get really curious about her revenue cycle experience, now she doesn't call it that, of course, you uncover the things like there's a large health system where she lives. Now, she will only go to 1 or 2 hospitals within that system. I wanted to understand why. It's not because the doctors are better, the nurses are better. It's because she has a horrible patient experience at the other locations. What that means as we dig into it is the timely meetings I get to have, or appointments, I have to see a specialist. Okay, that's referrals issue. Sometimes my care is denied. Well, that's a claims resolution payer denial issue. And my appointments are pushed out, or my grandfather's appointments are pushed out. She has to show up for it. What does that mean? Oh, that's a prior auth issue. So when we really look at the end in mind, and these are our patients, how are we working with our health systems to design solutions where we improve that? But funny enough, if you ask my grandmother today what I do for a living, she can't tell you.
Of course. She's just like a finance girl.
Right. So when we start aligning those types of things, at the end of the day, this is all about helping people. So there's no secret. Payer behavior is a challenge. I don't think half of the partners in this industry would exist if it wasn't. And it is impacting patient care. It's impacting health system financials, but it's also increasing that administrative burden on our health systems. When we look at revenue cycle management, it is not a one size fits all. Why? Because our health systems are not a one size fits all. We're going to dive into it a little bit more, but they're all in different levels of, let's say, automation readiness. I'm the immediate past president of HFMA Texas Lone Star. We're the third largest chapter. And when we have panel discussions with leaders from various organizations in the exact same role, the appetite for those types of things varies too. Not yet. We're going to wait and see how it all plays out with everyone else. Then you get the one that says, absolutely, let's do it. Let's get it done. Let's try it out. And then you have the one that's like gradually doing it, right? Gradually implementing automation. But what's important is what that story is telling us on the partner side. And we can dive into that just a little bit more in a minute, but we have to meet people where they are, and we have to make our solutions results driven, but approachable. And how are we impacting their KPIs when it comes to AR days, cost to collect, right? That net patient revenue data, and how are we aligning that from a C-suite perspective? But how are we educating those end users from all different generations? How are we helping them adopt the solutions? So a great resource. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, this is such an interesting thought process to see it through that lens so that you can understand like the purpose behind the why behind what you're doing. And I think that other folks that you're trying to speak with on a regular basis can really align with that why, because that's once they got into their spot, they realize that's what they impact in the long run. So I'm wondering, when you are speaking with and working with health systems to modernize their RevCycle, what are the most common obstacles you see, whether it's operational, cultural, or contractual?
Well, that is a great question because it can be all over the place, and that's okay. Automation readiness is key. What does that mean, right? What does that even mean? So we've published an automation readiness guide, but the biggest thing is the current workflow pain points. What steps within your revenue cycle? Is there a lot of duplication? Where is it manual? Where are we prone to make errors the most within that RevCycle process? Next, it's looking at what is the technology infrastructure? What is the EMR? And quite frankly, what was the build of your EMR, right? That's also not a one size fits all. And the goal is can that infrastructure support seamless integration? And if it can't, how can we partner with those teams to help them get there? For us, we do have people that have worked at Epic, for example. Their insight is so valuable because they are naturally qualified to be able to help our partners with some of those integrations. Also, benchmarking those key performance metrics. If we're not aligning what we are doing with what's important to our health systems, then that's a miss. And they're easy, right? Easy questions to ask. Cost to collect, time spent per claim per touch. What is your denial rate, especially denial rates related to prior auth? Where are you having the most trouble with your payers? Who's denying the most? How many days to authorization and write-off amounts? We have seen about a 40% auth-related write-off reduction. And we've also seen over on average 13 million net revenue improvement through automating tasks, solutions, and removing some of that administrative burden from our teams. Yeah.
And to think about these hospitals and health systems too, and their margins being so tight and many going under, it's like every penny counts. And to think about it that way too, it's like you're almost saving these organizations from failure.
Well, and I'm thinking too, when I started in supply chain, right? I'm looking at that going in my mind going, 13 million improvement. Well, that's an MRI machine. They can open a new service line. They don't have to close that service line. So in my mind, I'm thinking, what could those dollars do for these organizations, but more importantly, the communities that they serve, right? And so that's a value from starting in supply chain, years ago.
Oh, absolutely. And that makes sense to think of it that way. And I'm sure that's that's what they're thinking too. Like, oh, I can stay in business, but I can also provide better care with these innovations that I want to be able to offer. So how can an organization assess whether they're really ready for a RevCycle transformation? Not just like technically, but in terms of like their people, process, and leadership alignment?
That's a great question too. One of the things that we like to do, or for example, like pre-implementation activities, meaning that when we get to kick off a project, it's important to go ahead and have key steps already done. And why that's important for partner organizations is that speed to value and that trust building, right? I think a lot of this is building trust within automation. Look, it is AI, it's really AI and humans, right? We never want to take the human aspect out of this, but there is resistance to change across all industries. Healthcare is no exception. And quite frankly, we are a little behind the times compared to other industries, but that's okay. A lot of times it's important to know where we're starting from. Adoption and utilization programs, we feel very strongly about that. And why that's important is, yes, a decision maker, yes, a C-suite, they're all extremely important to the process. But who's also important are the end users making us successful. So how in this remote environment are we reaching them? Adoption utilization sessions, going on site, bringing people in at least for one day, sitting shoulder to shoulder, helping them leverage the technology, virtual sessions, but also celebrating our top end users, shining a light on them, not only in front of leadership, but also personally to them. And as we implement automation, more and more opportunities come of that. We have partners that leverage a claim intelligence solution that's been able to automate multiple processes. So it's not one and done once it's in your system. It is actually an initiative that can uncover even more automation opportunities. And that's how you really realize the benefit. We've seen a 40% decrease in manual follow-up for denials, for claims, and that is huge because that's removing that administrative burden and allowing our end users and our health systems to really focus on those complex denials. So that's really, really key. And also from an operational intelligence perspective, we're able, and in organizations, to see what is the team doing outside of their EMR, for example, Epic. And it uncovers training opportunities. It uncovers opportunities to celebrate those truly top performers. But on a more juicier side, it's also identified when jigglers have been installed on computers. So it looks like people are working all day, but they're not. And it also uncovered where people were doing maybe a second job, utilizing their work computer.
All right, so spill the tea now.
I know. So I always like to focus on the positive, but I figured for you, you'd kind of like some of the juicy tidbits with spilling the tea. But it's how are we managing, or how are health systems managing large teams of people that are literally all over this country.
It's RevCycle intelligence, but it's also workforce enhancement, which is kind of interesting to think of it that way. And it's the regulatory world is kind of on your side too now. I recently heard that CMS finalized its interoperability and prior auth rule, which requires payers to streamline approvals and exchange data with providers using FHIR and APIs. And this is supposedly going to really, hopefully, increase demand for technologies that enable that seamless data exchange. So from your perspective, as we're thinking about legislation and what the government is putting out rules on, how will this particular ruling reshape payer-provider workflows? What role can those play in reducing administrative burden?
Well, let's look at it. What are those top 4 key things it's trying to accomplish? With streamline prior authorization. Sounds fabulous, doesn't it? We want to improve the data exchange. Well, of course, absolutely. That's for partners that are on this side working with FHIR APIs. We know the challenge around that. And it is definitely something that we work on every minute of every day. Patient empowerment goes back to my grandmother. Is this really going to empower her as an advocate and caregiver and reduce costs and disruption? That sounds fabulous. But one key word that you mentioned when you were explaining this is supposedly. We know, as everything else in healthcare, this is not going to be overnight. So there is definitely going to be a need, right, for partners to come in and help offset this until this is fully rolled out. And The requirements for payers to make decisions within 72 hours for urgent requests, 7 days for standard request. Absolutely. I think that is definitely important, because if you think about the patient at the end of the day, keeping the patient in mind and their advocates, that will be key. But time will tell, right? Time will tell. So we are really focused on prior authorization. Yes, it's a hot topic, but quite frankly, it's been a hot topic for quite some time. It's having a moment in our industry. Just like I remember over a decade ago, RevCycle, we started having our moment, and now it's everything RevCycle. So time will tell. I would love to circle back with you, let's say in a year, and let's unpack it again, right? From what are the 4 key things it's going to accomplish to, okay, what's the progress of that? What has it accomplished?
It just feels like the innovation in this space and in the care space as well is exponential because of AI and because of just the advancement of technologies and their ability to really improve things in this space. And I'm wondering, as you're working with these health systems, as we kind of wrap up this part of the podcast, what beyond financial performance for them, what are some other success measures do you feel they should be tracking to ensure that their RevCycle operations support the patients, support the staff, keep everybody happy and healthy and well?
So one great resource, I'll plug HFMA map keys. A lot of organizations, really most of them, that's the standard for RevCycle metrics. But please, if you're not familiar with it, go out and search it. It's a really great resource for those metrics. What's also important is patient retention. I think patient retention, patient satisfaction is extremely important. And if you think about the solutions, whether it is prior auth, referrals, notice of admission, denial avoidance, denial analytic, there's a whole list that a lot of partners do across this country. Those types of technologies are going to help increase not only their RevCycle metrics, but their patient retention. So once we start seeing this as RevCycle's over here. No, we are part of the entire patient experience, especially on the non-clinical side, that quite frankly impacts clinical, right? If it gets in the way of care. And your staff satisfaction, right? I truly believe people show up their best self at that point in time. And if we can provide tools to help them be more efficient, help them be more productive, basically make their life easier, that's a win-win. So everything, all these metrics really impact patient retention, streamlining RevCycle and bringing those dollars in and reduction of denials, to also staff satisfaction, investing in the tools that make them more successful.
So true. Now, my listeners love to learn about what's happening in the industry. So thank you for being so generous with your wisdom. But we also love to learn about what drives women and leaders in healthcare technology like yourself. So, when you're thinking about leadership, and what are some things that you do in your daily life to help you work your best and make a difference?
Well, first is going back to the servant leadership style. I think helping others is a foundation. And I'm not just saying that. I think the same person I show up for you is the same woman I show up at work, the same woman I show up for my family. I'm not multiple people, depending on who I'm talking to. And when you think about your internal condition, I love this kind of stuff. Am I spiritually and emotionally fit internally? Because if not, then I can't show up as the woman I meant to be. And you're like, yes. And hey, that's
I'm over here giving her snaps, and I don't want to stop her because I'm like, yes, girl, say it from the rooftops.
It is true. But hey, let me just tell you, it was a journey to get there. This is one of those things. And I think it's about, my friends know I hate the P word, perfection. If I'm perfect, then I have no room to grow. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to put yourself out there and learn from it. So what makes me tick? Helping others, advocating, and mentoring. At the end of the day, we're all human. Early in my career, in my late 20s, I would prepare, or even early 30s, basically, I would prepare to meet with clients. I would do the PowerPoint. I would spend days and hours and make this 20-page dissertation. And I would show up to those meetings and I would just blah. I would not listen, right? I wouldn't give them a chance to talk. And that is a mistake, right? Because now, well, for a long time now, since obviously I'm older, that is the most beautiful part of a meeting, is being quiet, listening, learning how to listen, asking the right questions, and truly being present. And as I look back on my 29-year-old self or 30-year-old self, I wanted to unpack why I was doing the things I was doing. And I think I was always trying to prove I deserved a seat at that table. And then I knew what I was talking about. And as you mature and as you grow, you realize other people's voice and experience carries way more depth and weight. And we get to help these organizations, but we also get to listen and learn from them. Removing the armor, yes, there's going to be difficult conversations, but there's also going to be tremendous conversations. And a lot of times what we think might be the truth or might be the perception, it's okay to be a little off on that, but no need to armor up. When we go to customer meetings or when I mentor someone or advocate for my team, I look at that and say, are we armoring up unnecessarily? Right? How can we be of service? Whether it's to the company you work for or to our clients, to remove that armor, because we're all human and we're all here for the same reason, right? To be of service. So I think all of that combined just really gives the foundation. If you can't tell, I'm a Brene Browner. I love her. She's coming out with a new book. I'm so excited. But I really encourage people, find your resource. There's so much out there, right? But find something that you connect with, that you can learn from to help shape the woman you want to be, but the leader you want to be.
Girl, yeah. I needed to hear that today. I know you all did too. So to finish this conversation off right, where can our listeners find you online?
So LinkedIn, of course, and our Janus Health website, the leadership page. Other fun fact, I'm an artist. So one of the things I do kind of want to round out with, I have a beautiful art business and I love art. My dad was an artist. And find something creative. So you can absolutely find me on my website, but find something creative that you do. And so many women say, but I'm not creative. Yes, you are. Food, fashion, writing, whatever that is. What are you doing to fuel outside of just your work? And I'm telling you, being creative makes me better at the way I show up. And it's a beautiful phenomenon. And through the art, I get to help other women. I get to inspire women. I get to donate artwork to the organizations that we serve in silent auctions to help the organization. So there are so many things that we could be doing. And another tidbit I love to include is the partnerships that we get to have on the partner side. Look and see, instead of, this is going to be controversial, instead of going to a steak dinner all the time, why don't we get a table at their foundations, luncheons? We have one coming up with Baylor Scott and White Women's Foundation. How great is that? We get to invite our clients to attend with us. Then on the flip side of things, another client, she's doing a 5K this weekend in Denver. I'm flying out there to raise money for a foundation she started on behalf of her daughter. So it goes back to, how are we showing up above and beyond the automation, the analytics, the metrics, and all of the money we're helping find for our partners? But how are we showing up in those communities is also another little tidbit of advice I love to give your listeners.
It's blowing my mind.
Oh.
Like, show care and concern for the things that they care about and are concerned about. And that is such a powerful way to build a relationship beyond just a working relationship.
Yeah, it goes back to you show up for the people in your life.
Terrific.
And by showing up, it doesn't mean you have to solve everything. It doesn't mean you have to do whatever, but it's not hard to show up and find out what really is important to other people. Because at the end of the day, I mean, it's probably important to you too.
True. Or should be.
Should be. It should be, yes.
So now, before I forget, did you happen to bring tea with you today? And if so, tell me about your mug or
I did.
Yeah.
Okay. So my husband's British. So this is from the Queen's Diamond Jubilee in 2012, and we got married in 2013. So I thought, you know what? That will be a really sweet mug.
It's like a good luck charm and also an amazing memory of a beautiful day.
I know. It's fun. Now what you think what's really fun is at the dinner table, sometimes you should join us when I ask about healthcare. And when I talk to his dad about healthcare over there versus over here, and with him saying, I don't really care about RevCycle. I just want to go to the doctor and pay on my app and leave. I'm like, good enough. But what's really cool is that you get to see what's healthcare like over there, because I get too curious. And then what's really important is to someone like him who really just wants to show up and get care and leave, right? So it is.
Gives you such a global perspective when you think of it that way, and you realize some wild to think the problems we have, some of the problems they don't have, and some of the problems they have are ones we absolutely do not have. And to compare the two must be really interesting.
Oh, they still need supplement. People still get supplemental healthcare insurance over there. Don't worry. I mean, it's not all it's cracked up to be sometimes, for sure. Yeah.
That's too good. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was awesome to learn from you.
Great. Thank you for the opportunity. Love to come back. I love the work you're doing. It's amazing. So thank you for helping our community.
Thank you. And thanks to you folks for joining us too. Check out the HITea With Grace podcast for more interviews with great guests like Jamie today. Cheers.
Like a Girl Media is more than a media network. It's a community. We want to meet you and amplify your voice and the voices of outstanding women innovating in healthcare. Interested in starting your own podcast or hosting an event near you? Connect with us online or in person. We're here to support and empower you.